Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here, and I am back with another video. This time it is going to be on Cho'Gall. And how good is Cho'Gall really? Well, that's kind of hard to answer because it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about just Cho'Gall as I guess, heroes in general, they're actually very, very good. But if you're talking about Cho'Gall in the sense of Hero League, well, it's going to be awful because, as you know, you can only solo queue for Hero League, which means you're going to be playing Cho or Gall with a random in Hero League if you ever want to do that, and really you don't want to do that. So if you're in coordinated play or you have a really good buddy in quick match or something, you're gonna get a lot of effectiveness out of Cho'Gall, but outside of those situations, I mean, you're never really be able to play him in Hero League. But he is actually quite good. So for those of you that don't know, Cho'Gall is two heroes. It is Cho and Gall. And Cho, you can see here I am playing Cho, and you can move around, you can control your character as you would normally. You have basic abilities here, and then Gall is actually Gall is the one with the beard here, and Cho is the one on the left. And Gall cannot be you cannot when you're playing Gall, you can't control movement whatsoever. You just have basic abilities, and it's kind of just like playing an Abath or Hat, but you're basically permanently stuck on a hero. So there isn't too much play. It's Gall's probably the easiest hero to play in the game. Um, Kind of not a coincidence that this hero is also called the girlfriend hero or the relationship hero because you just play it with your significant other, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm gonna go over both Cho and Gall's talents in this video, and in the description I will put a timestamp for um, each talents or when I'm covering each hero, so you can look at that instead of just watching both versions if you just want to see. And let's talk about some heroes that Cho and Gall are good with. So Ariel is the first hero that comes to mind, and Ariel is exceptionally strong with Cho'Gall because of pretty much. Well, there's one big reason, and the second reason is only a new kind of thing. So the first reason is the way that Ariel generates energy is she puts her crown on a hero, and they generate a portion of their damage goes into Ariel's energy, and that converts to healing. So the more damage a hero does, the more healing they get. Another reason is um, Ariel Ariel's crown at level 7. There's a talent where 25% of the damage a hero takes is also converted into energy. So again, more energy generation. And of course, when you're crowning Cho'Gall, it generates the energy from two heroes. And Gall actually does a huge amount of damage, but you're also getting Cho's damage. So you're gonna get a lot of energy from Cho'Gall. The other reason, which is a new reason, is Ariel's other heroic, besides Crystal Aegis, which is Resurrect, I think it's called Resurrect, will actually revive both Cho and Gall when you use it. So you kind of get double effectiveness because you're reviving two heroes. So that is quite effective. I don't know, I haven't gotten too much experience with it so far, but it seems like it's definitely a viable option now. Before you just go Crystal Aegis no matter what. But now I could see Resurrect being pretty good. And there's also quite a other few heroes. Um, you want to make sure that if you're playing Cho'Gall, you usually want to play with kind of some kind of burst healing. So, or you can also do like a mouth. But the best healers for Cho'Gall are Rhaegar. Ancestral is really good with Rhaegar or with Cho'Gall because of Cho's massive health. Ariel is the best support by far. And then Medic can also be quite good as well. So some kind of like really sustained or powerful, consistent healing is really good for Cho'Gall. The type of comp you want to play Cho'Gall in is usually you want to have, so you're going to have Cho'Gall, which is two heroes, right? Then you're gonna have your support, which is your healing. So now you need two other heroes. You usually almost always want a solo laner because you don't want Cho'Gall in a solo lane. Like on Dragon Char, you don't want Cho'Gall top lane. You want Cho'Gall rotating between mid and bot. And the other hero you want on your team is a ranged damage dealer. You need 100% need a ranged damage dealer on your team. So like Bala or Lunara, maybe Gul'dan, some kind of hero that is really independent. You don't have to worry about because all efforts by the enemy team are pretty much going to be focused on you, and you don't want to have to worry about your other allies if they have like an Illidan or something that's diving them. You want your allies to be very independent. And the other hero you can have in your team. So if you have a solo lane or um, you want to have a solo lane, you want to have a ranged DPS, you want to have a healer, and you want to have Cho'Gall, of course. So your solo lane is either going to be kind of like a melee assassin, or it's going to be another tank. So like Tyrael is a really good option because Tyrael is really good at solo tanking, and Tyrael Sanctification is really good for peeling, and he's a really good solo laner as well. The types of maps you want to play Cho'Gall on. are usually rotation-based maps. The bigger the map, the worse Cho'Gall is generally. So like in Tires of Doom, we have to be in multiple places at once. Not his best map at all. Um, but Infernal Shrines is probably his best map because you're constantly fighting with the enemy team in a team fight, and he's very, very effective on the shrines. He does them very quickly, and he also heals off of each minion. And he also has Cho'Gall has. I mean, I don't say Cho'Gall has the best wave clear in the game because it's technically two heroes, but yeah, he has really 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 good wave clear, and being in rotation and he has really good poke can be very effective. So let's talk about Cho'Gall's abilities. So I can actually switch to Gall in this in try mode here. So I'm gonna be switching back and forth. Let's cover some basics first. So when you're actually in the character screen, Cho picks the skin that you're using, and Gall picks the mount that you're using. You can see here that Cho actually will carry the mount, and you're actually mounted like this. So Cho's Q is Surging Fist. Activate to begin charging Surging Fist, and activate again to dash forward. So it knocks enemies aside, dealing damage, and the dash range is increased by up to 250%, depending on how long it's charged. So this is basically just a mobility tool. You can get interrupted out of Surging Fist. See that the range constantly increases the longer you hold it. It doesn't cap out like halfway through, like the old one used to, I believe. And then we have Consuming Blaze. So ignite nearby enemies, dealing damage over time, or over 5 seconds. Basic attacking burning enemies reignites them. Cho's healed for 88 damage when an enemy is ignited. So this sounds a little bit confusing, but basically when you press W here, you can see that Gall's actually, because it's a bot, so the Gall's placing vision wards. You can see that it does a little bit of damage over time, and the target is also ignited. So you can see on their health bar, there's a little bit of damage over time dot going off on them. And when you hit a target with the initial Consuming Blaze, it's going to heal you a bit. So you can see that I'll get healed. It's not much, it's 88, but every time you attack a hero or attack an enemy, they are reignited. So not only if you continue attacking an enemy, if I continue attacking this ogre, they will always have the dot reapplied. So this dot will always stay on them. And every time I auto attack them, I will get healed for whatever the healing amount is, 88 here. Also, if you W in a big wave, you will heal off of all the minions in that wave, or all the enemies that you hit. So every enemy hit applies the healing. You can see here, get a bunch of healing. And if you keep attacking a target, they will also reignite, so you get more healing off of that. So it makes Cho very strong in 1v1 situations. I guess it's 2v1 situations. But attacking a single target is very strong because you'll continue rocking Consuming Blaze over and over and over again. Rune Bomb, you roll a bomb in a target direction, dealing damage to enemies in its path, and then Gall can use Runic Blast to detonate it to deal 511 damage area, so just more damage in area. So basically it just looks like this. So it'll damage enemies as it comes across into them, and Gall can also reactivate it. So I can't actually make Gall reactivate it, but if Gall were to reactivate it, it would just show like a blinking, because his E would show a blinking Rune Bomb, and you just activate it whenever you want to do damage. So basically, Gall just presses E at any point down the roll here to do increased damage. Cho's D is pretty interesting. So one of the changes that they made to Cho'Gall was they've nerfed his health quite substantially. I think he used to have like over 8 or 9,000 health at level 20, and now he has just over 7,000. And at level 1, Stitches, actually just in general, Stitches actually has more health. Actually, no, I don't believe this is true. Stitches at level 1 has more health than Cho'Gall, but Cho'Gall still has more health at level 20 because he scales harder than Stitches. But base health, Stitches has more health than Cho'Gall now, and to compensate for that, he can activate Ogre Hide to permanently gain 25 armor. But Gall's damage is reduced by 25%. So what this means is Gall has another ability. I'll actually just switch right now so I can show you. Gall has another ability called Ogre Rage. Bot should just stop right here. And you activate this to increase Gall's damage by 25%, but reduce Cho's armor. Gall is also permanently immune to stun. So basically, you can always cast spells regardless of whether you're stunned or silenced. I don't think you can cast spells when you're polymorph. So if Gall here activates Ogre Rage, then his damage is increased by 25%, but Cho has 25 less armor. So it says it says Cho's armor is reduced by 25, and then when you switch back over to Cho, it says you can activate to gain 25 armor. So it might sound like a 50 armor difference, but it's really only a 25 armor difference. So when you have Ogre Hide activated, you have 25 armor, and when Gall activates whatever the other one's called, you just lose that 25 armor. So you're not like in a deficit of 25 armor versus a positive of 25 armor. It's not a difference of 50 armor. It's just a difference of 25 armor and 25 spell damage. Okay, so that's all of Cho's basic abilities. You also have a cooldown indicator here for shove. So I believe I might be able to show you this.
Choose a talent.
Nope, I don't think I can show you this. Okay, but when Gall uses shove, which is an ability that he has, this actually shows you the cooldown of what shove is, so you don't have to guess, or your partner doesn't have to tell you. Okay, so let's go over talents for Cho. Consuming Fire is Consuming Blaze heals for 150% more when the hero is ignited. Fuel for the Flame is quest talent. Every minion killed near Cho increases the amount healed by Consuming Blaze by 0.3%. Every hero takedown increases the amount healed by Consuming Blaze by 3%. And Calloused Hide, Ogre Hide also increases healing received by 15%. Okay, so Consuming Fire here is by far the better talent. So it's not only going to increase your healing when you activate Consuming Blaze. So if I go up to a target here, let me actually take some damage really quickly over here first. Okay, so if I go over here and I pop my W, you can see that it heals for an amount, and then when I activate Consuming Blaze, you can see that it heals for a significant amount of more, and every time you auto attack against a hero affected by Consuming Blaze, you're going to be healed for a significant amount. So although it's not going to heal quite as much as maybe Fuel for the Flame in AoE effects when you're targeting minions, Consuming Fire out heals Fuel for the Flame significantly, pretty much in all team fights. So Fuel for the Flame is a kind of a quest talent. So there's 7 minions in a wave. So if you clear one wave of minions, you'll gain 2.1% increased healing, which is not a lot. So if you clear 10 minion waves, that's going to be 21%, and if you clear 20 minion waves, that'll be 42%. So you're going to gain 42% after you clear 20 minion waves, and say you get a few kills. Like say you might get like 70% on that quest, but 70% is still not even close to the 150% you gain for Consuming Fire. Of course, again, Consuming Blaze is only versus heroes, but a lot of time you're going to be facing heroes. Like you're not really going to be attacking minions that much to gain the healing. A lot of times you would just be in team fights attacking heroes. So you'll gain a lot more effectiveness and you'll get it right at the beginning of the game. Calloused Hide is pretty decent, but 50% more healing isn't game changing. If you have a double healer comp, or maybe if you have an Ariel, then you could go Calloused Hide because you're getting so much raw healing. But most of the time especially if you're kind of soloing or you're in quick match, you don't have kind of a dedicated healer, you'll gain a lot more value from Consuming Fire. So I go a specific build with Cho. So all these talents are kind of going to line up later in the build. But we have Uppercut. So Surging Fist deals additional damage to heroes equal to 7% of their max health. That's a lot. Rollback. Rune Bomb rolls back to Cho, damaging enemies in its path. Seared Flesh. Each consecutive basic attack to an enemy deals 20% more damage up to a maximum of 60%. This bonus lasts for 5 seconds or until a different enemy is attacked. So I go Seared Flesh here, and Cho actually hits quite hard, 313 at level 20, and you can see here how hard, if you take Seared Flesh, how hard you can actually hit. You can hit up to 501 damage per basic auto attack. That's a lot of health, or a lot of damage, especially you can get attack speed later on with Cho'Gall as well, so you will be able to hit like a truck. So Uppercut is also really good, but I found that the auto attack build that I'm going to go here is actually more effective. So even though 7% every time you Q is again, it's really, really strong, especially versus a lot of tanks. Seared Flesh just gets more value. Level 7, we have Power Surge. So each hero hit by a Surging Fist reduces the cooldown by 4 seconds. So that means if you hit 3 heroes or more, you will completely refresh the cooldown of Surging Fist. Firestarter, basic attacks against ignited heroes decrease the cooldown of Consuming Blaze by 1, and you passively reduce the cooldown of Consuming Blaze by 3 seconds. So the cooldown of Consuming Blaze is reduced to 9 seconds passively, and then every time you auto attack, you can continue to reduce that cooldown. In Rage Regeneration, while Gall's Ogre Rage is active, Cho's health regeneration is increased by 200%, so 3 times. You can see here that we have about 15, so 3 times that is 45, a little less than 45. And you're going to have 45 health regen, not nearly as effective as Firestarter for healing. And most of the time I go Firestarter, but sometimes I will go Power Surge. If they do have like a lot of tanks, I will actually go Uppercut with Power Surge at level 7, but most of the time I'm going to be going Seared Flesh with Firestarter, so that's going to give me a significant amount of healing and reduce the cooldown on Consuming Blaze. Also, I just want to mention for how to use Ogre Hide versus Gall's version. Basically, whenever you're taking damage, just press D. And then whenever you stop taking damage, Gall just presses D. It's pretty straightforward. So when you're not taking damage, Gall does more damage, and when you are taking damage, activate this to reduce the damage that you take. So I take Firestarter.
Choose a talent.
Level 10, I pretty much exclusively go Hammer of Twilight. So Hammer of Twilight, activate to swing the Hammer of Twilight, dealing 361 damage. So basically, you deal damage, push enemies away, and stunning them for 0.75 seconds. And Cho's basic attacks passively deal 25% increased damage as well.
Choose a talent.
So this synergizes pretty well with the level 4 talent. So you can see that the range is actually almost completely around Cho'Gall. It's more than 180 degrees. It just looks like this. And it's a short cooldown, only 15 seconds. And it knocks enemies back as well. I believe I can knock this back. It's going to stun them and knock them back. So this is very effective for peeling, for diving, for bursting, because it does a decent amount of damage as well. The other heroic we have is Upheaval. So after 1 second, pull enemies toward Cho'Gall, slowing them by 25% for 3 seconds and dealing damage as well. So 60-second cooldown on that. Let's take a look at that talent.
Choose a talent. Choose a talent. Choose a talent. Choose a talent.
So it just looks like this. And you can pull enemies. So this is there are situations that you definitely want to go Upheaval and situations you want to go to Hammer of Twilight. So Hammer of Twilight is just generally better. In most situations, it's really good against if they have a lot of tanks, if they have a lot of dive, if you need to peel, if you need to interrupt something. And Upheaval is better if they have a very kind of backline oriented comp. So if they have like a medic as well, or double healer or something where they're very hard to get onto and you need Upheaval to engage, this is going to be the better option for you. So if they have a medic, it's really, really good to kind of get to that medic. And basically, if you have trouble getting to their team, you want to take Upheaval. But I see this taken almost every single game. Almost every Cho'Gall I find, especially in like quick match and stuff, goes Upheaval. And they'll go Upheaval and they'll go the burst alt on Gall. So I would definitely suggest going Hammer of Twilight instead. Level 13, we have Frenzied Fists. Gain 75% attack speed for 5 seconds after using Surging Fist. Runic feedback. Gall's Runic Blast reduces the cooldown of Cho's Rune Bomb by 1 second per enemy hit and 2 seconds per each hero hit. And Runed Gauntlet. Basic attacks reduce the cooldown of Cho and Gall's heroic abilities by 0.75 seconds. So most of the time I go Frenzied Fists. Well, actually every time I go Frenzied Fists. And 75% attack speed for 5 seconds is a huge attack speed increase, especially when you have these auto attack talents that I seem to have. Rune Gauntlet is pretty much just bad, and Runic Feedback is also not good. So Frenzied Fist is a big power spike here at level 13. So you can see here that if I Q, you can attack very quickly and do a lot of damage. Remember that enemy heroes like Vala or whatnot will only have like 2,500 health, and you're hitting for like 500-600 per auto attack, just in auto attacks, not including your other abilities, not including Hammer of Twilight for burst, not including Gall's abilities. You can burst heroes extremely quickly. Level 16 we have Surging Dash, which while channeling Surging Fist, Cho is unstoppable and heals for an amount per second. Twilight Veil, 30-second cooldown, activate increase the armor bonus of Ogre Hide by 300% for 2 seconds. Basically, this is a hardened shield, but instead of having 4-second duration, it has 2 seconds, and instead of having 60-second cooldown, it has a 30-second cooldown. So it's basically half the effect of hardened shield. The other thing to note is it's 75% or 75 armor, 75% damage reduction, so it's literally the same thing. Molten Block is a 60-second cooldown, activate under stasis and gain invulnerability for 3 seconds, and you also damage enemies while you're in it. So this is basically Ice Block that does a little bit of damage. The Surging Fist is actually the best option here. Unstoppable while you're charging is extremely strong, especially if they have a lot of CC. not only can you use this to
Choose a
get
talent.
away in sticky situations, you can see it's unstoppable now when I use my Q. It'll also heal you for a pretty reasonable amount. And you can just use it, if you use it at the right time, you can use it to dodge hard CC, say they have like Emerging or something, or they have some other kinds of hard CC, maybe you can just Q right through Malfruits. Actually, I don't know if you can Q through the root. I think as soon as you use the Surging Fist, it stops, you stop being unstoppable. So you can see that it heals for a pretty decent amount here. Also note that you can't Q through terrain. It doesn't work like that. Should have mentioned that earlier. So this is the best option here at level 16. I tried Twilight Veil, but the duration is just way too short. Unless they have like an incredible amount of burst damage, but if they have a lot of burst damage, um, then they probably have a lot of CC. And if they have a lot of CC, you're probably just better off going Surging Dash. So if they do have a lot of burst damage, you might just be better going Molten Block instead of either of the options to actually keep you alive and then just wait out the damage. Note that Gall can also use abilities while you are in Molten Block. I believe so at least. Actually, I'm not sure if that's true. That might be wrong. Um, okay, so level 20 we have Cthulhu's Gift. Cho's basic attacks become ranged and slow targets by 20% for 2 seconds. Favor of the Old God. Upheaval roots enemy heroes for 1.5 seconds. The Will of Cho. Takedowns permanently increase the armor granted by Ogre Hide by 2, up to a maximum of 50 extra armor. So that would mean that you permanently, if you somehow stacked it up to 50, when you have Ogre Hide active, you would somehow have 75% damage reduction permanently. Hour of Twilight decreases Cho'Gall's death timer by 50%. Okay, so let me just take Favor of the Old Gods here to show that. It's just basically roots when you pull, and that's nice, but it also kind of overrides the slow. So since it roots for 1.5 seconds and they're slowed by 3 seconds when you pull, they have 1.5 seconds of root and then followed by 1.5 seconds of slow, just so you know how that works. So as I said, I usually go Hammer of Twilight, and if you go Hammer of Twilight, I almost go, basically always go Cthulhu's Gift. Cho's basic attacks become ranged, so that's extremely
Choose a
powerful
talent.
option. Let me just take
Choose
random
a
talents
talent.
here.
Choose a talent.
So you
Choose a
can show you,
talent.
so attack range is increased to 5, which is 1 larger than Cassia and Tychus. The attack range is pretty decent. And remember that if you queue in, actually did I take the attack speed? Yeah, I did. You can auto attack heroes from ranged. I didn't take Seared Flesh here, so it doesn't increase damage. But if you have the Seared Flesh with the auto attack range, level 20, combined with attack speed, you're gonna be able to chunk heroes extremely hard, and they can't get away from you either because you have a 20% slow that basically permanently slow them. So extremely strong level 20 talent. The only other option I would consider, Will of Cho is way too situational. You're never really gonna get value from that. Especially like once you hit level 20, you'll get like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 kills, maybe 5, maybe 6, 7 at the most, and the game's gonna be over by that point anyway. So you're never really gonna get value, even though this seems amazing. If this is level 1 or something, it'd be broken, but level 20 is way too late in the game. Hour of Twilight decreases Cho'Gall's death timer by 50%. This is actually very, very, very effective, and I'd recommend that you actually do go this talent, especially if you're new to Cho'Gall. 50% death timer is, again, huge, especially if it counts as 2 heroes, right? Because you have Cho and Gall. So it's going to reduce your death timer from like 65 seconds to just over 30 seconds, maybe like 32 seconds or something, which is a huge change. So definitely a viable option at level 20. But again, Cthulhu's Gift. Okay, let's switch over to Gall.
Choose a talent.
So Gall has
Choose a
a number of
talent.
basic abilities, and a lot of the changes to Cho'Gall were focused on Gall. So they made a lot of Gall's talents just baseline. So now I don't know why I can't show you, but I can't use Shove here. So Shove um, basically, it's a 30-second cooldown, and you nudge Cho a small distance and grant him 25% movement speed for 2 seconds. So this can be used out of CC as well. So if Cho is stunned by like an ETC, and then Tron is going to follow up with another stun. Once Cho gets stunned by the ETC slide, he can use nudge and dodge the following CC. So you can actually use it while you're stunned. It doesn't cancel the stun, but you can move while you're stunned, so it can help prevent follow-up damage. Shadow Flame, you basically just deal damage in a line, has a 3-second cooldown, and deals damage to enemies in an area. Pretty standard. Dread Orb, throw a bomb that will bounce 3 times, dealing damage every time it bounces to all enemies. So you can see here that the indicator changes based on how close I target. So if I target right in front, it's going to bounce right in front of it. And if I go farther, it's going to bounce a lot further. So this is actually really, really good for stalling and poking. You can see the range goes all the way from here to these ogre camps. Actually, I can't target here from apparently. And you basically just spam these abilities as much as you can. You always want to be spamming your abilities on Gall. Pretty much all you have to do is just spam your abilities. You can see here that the Runic Blast is what I was talking about before. So when Cho casts his what's it actually called? It's
Choose a
called
talent.
Rune Bomb. When
Choose a
Cho
talent.
casts this ability,
Choose a
you can
talent.
activate it
Choose a
by
talent.
pressing Runic Blast. I can't do it here because obviously try mode won't let me. And then the only other kind of ability we have here is Ogre Rage. So again, you just activate Ogre Rage whenever you're not taking damage to increase your damage, not Cho's damage, by 25%. Pretty straightforward. And then Eye of Kilrog is basically scouting drone on steroids. So not only does it, well, it's basically just has a much further range, and I think it scouts for a larger area as well. This will reveal stealth enemies as well. I'm quite sure of that. So you just want to place these around the map and grant vision. The last 45 seconds, they have a 45-second charge time, so you can have at least one up permanently. They died to 2 basic auto attacks though. So let's go over Gall's talent. So keep moving, increase the duration of Shove's movement speed by 1 second. Cho's basic attacks against heroes increase the duration of an active shove by 1 second. Taskmaster reduces the cooldown of shove by 10 seconds, so from 30 to 20. Every time Cho is hit by a hero basic attack, reduce the cooldown of shove by 1 second. And we see you. Eye of Kilrog's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, so from 45 to 30 seconds, and its range is increased by 33%. So when it says range is increased by 33%, look at where I can place these. I can place one right here, right? And when I get the increased
Choose a
range, I can
talent.
place it over here. So it's not that the vision it grants you is increased, it's the range you can place. You can place them further away. This basically gives you a lot more vision and is a very strong option to get level 1, especially if they have any kind of stealth heroes. If they have stealth heroes, probably the talent you want to go. Then you have Keep Moving, which and Taskmaster, which are pretty similar. They both reduce the cooldown. Well, they both change how Shove works for the duration effect. Um, and Taskmaster is just a much better version of Keep Moving. So it's going to increase the duration of Cho's movement speed by 1 second. But this is pretty much most of the time you're going to be using Shove. You want to use it defensively. Sometimes you use it offensively, but most of the time you're going to use it defensively. So the increased movement speed, okay, 1 second increase helps, but that's for a level 1 talent where you can get significantly reduce the cooldown. So you're basically going to get 1 second increase because when you're using Shove, you're not really attacking heroes, especially if you're using it defensively. So you won't really increase the duration of the movement speed that much. Instead, you can reduce the cooldown right off the bat by 30 seconds, and every time you get an auto attack, you reduce the cooldown further. So imagine you're against like a Zarya, you're against a Tracer, you're against a Tassadar, against any of these fast attacking heroes. Think of how fast the cooldown is going to be reduced on Shove. And then if you're just against normal heroes that attack on a normal speed, if you're being focused by like 3 heroes in your team, that's already a huge amount of auto attack. So it's going to significantly reduce the cooldown of Shove. So you can get the cooldown of Shove down to like 5 to 10 seconds, which is huge. Again, Weesu is a very strong option as well. So it's pretty much just preference. If they have stealth though, you probably want to be more inclined to go the Vision. And if they have any kind of fast attacking heroes, you want to go Taskmaster. Level 4, we have Double Back. Activate Dread Orb before the second bounce ends to reverse the direction of the third bounce. The third bounce of Dread Orb deals 200% more damage to non-heroic targets. Runic Persistence, Runic Blast deals an additional amount of damage over 3 seconds in an area around the detonation point, and bombs away, damaging a hero with Runic Blast increases its damage by 5. After damaging 20 heroes, the range and speed of Cho's Rune Bomb is increased by 20%. Okay, so double back, let's
Choose a
take this just to see
talent.
what it does here. So I can activate my W again anytime before the third bounce, and it can bounce back. So if I do it again here, go all the way over here, activate, and it'll bounce back. Or I can just not activate it, and it will continue bouncing. The third bounce, again, deals some vision over here, deals increased damage. Does 3 times the amount of damage to non-heroic targets. I can actually not in range for that. Um, So this actually is really good for sieging. If you're poking out forts or structures from a long range away, they count as non-heroic targets, so you do 3 times the amount of damage to those targets. So that is quite strong, but it's not really a realistic top option. So most of the time, I mean, all the time that I go, I never go double back or bombs away. I'll just go running persistence because it actually gives you value every single time you're going to use your E. Unfortunately, I can't show you here how it actually works, but you can see the damage here is 511 versus 400 damage, about 400 damage. So you're actually almost gaining a another Runic Blast effect when you use it. Of course, it's over 3 seconds. But of course, I can't show you what it's like. But basically, you just activate it and it leaves a little puddle on the ground over Runic Blast would explode. So it does additional damage as well there. Double back, again, not realistic. Bombs away. It's going to increase your damage by about 100 or 100 when you fully stack this quest. And it's going to increase the range and speed, but it doesn't really matter. The range and speed don't matter because you'll always hit your E anyway. It's really easy for Cho to target it. So you're not really going to get effectiveness. You get by far the most effectiveness out of Runic Persistence at 4. Okay, level 7 is where things get interesting. So Edge of Madness, every subsequent hit of Shadow Plane against the same enemy hero deals an additional 8% damage up to a maximum of 40%. These bonuses are lost if the hero has not been hit for 4 seconds. Double Trouble, it's a quest talent. If Shadow Flame hits an enemy hero that is afflicted by Cho's Consuming Blaze, its cooldown is reduced by 1 second. After hitting 20 heroes, which is not a lot at all, Shadow Flame's cooldown is reduced. It's instead permanently reduced by 1 second. And Ogre Rampage. So Gall's basic ability cooldown. They reduce the cooldown is reduced by 75% faster for 5 seconds after Cho activates Ogre Hide. So sorry, kind of a brain fart there. So
Choose a
Edge of
talent.
whoops, not mean to do that. So Edge of Madness. Let me
Choose
just
a
go through
talent.
here really quick.
Choose a talent.
So Edge of Madness. Every subsequent hit. Sorry. Okay. So Edge of Madness is not nearly as effective as either of these other two options. It's going to do up to 40% damage, but you have to hit them 5 times to gain that effect. And you're going to get way more damage from either Double Trouble or Ogre Rampage. So Ogre Rampage is very effective. Remember that Gall's basic abilities cooldown. Gall's basic ability cooldowns. Gall's basic abilities cooldown 75% faster for 5 seconds. Okay, I don't know. It's a really weird wording for that. Um, so they're gonna cool down significantly faster, and you can basically spam your abilities, and you can spam Ogre Rage over and over again. Remember, it's only a 5 second cooldown between uses, so you can have this up almost 100% of the time. With Double Trouble, remember that when you activate Consuming Blaze, so when Cho activates Consuming Blaze, you will be able to. Cho's always gonna have Consuming Blaze on a hero, so hitting a hero is really easy with um, Double Trouble, so it's really easy to stack this. And then once you have these, I did test this, but I'm not 100% sure, but I'm quite sure that you can get up to 2 second cooldown reduction instead of the 1 second kind of it shows here. So Shadow Flame is a 3 second cooldown, and when you hit a hero that's already affected by Consuming Blaze, it reduces the cooldown by 1 second. And when you stack it up, the passive is you're passively reducing the cooldown to 2 seconds. So when you hit a target, it reduces the cooldown to 1 second. So you basically have a 1 second cooldown on Shadow Flame, which is very effective. And um, although you'll be able to use your Q and your W more with Ogre Rampage. So you'll be able to use your W more than you can use your Q if you take Double Trouble. You'll get more damage out of going Shadow Flame with or going Double Trouble and getting value out of Shadow Flame. Sorry, that was just I don't know what happened there. I just had kind of a huge brain fart. Getting so confused over reading the description. I know what it does, but just trying to say that. Okay, so I recommend going Double Trouble pretty much every game. 20 heroes is very easy to do as well.
Choose a
Okay,
talent.
level 20 or level 10 talents, we have Shadow Bolt Volley. After 1 second, unleash 20 Shadow Bolts over 4 seconds, each dealing damage to the first target hit. The bolts fire towards your mouse. Twisting Nether, after 1 second, nearby enemies are slowed by 50%, while Gall channels up to 5 seconds activate to deal damage up front. 80-second cooldown. Okay, so this is where I might get some flack, but I feel like it should be fairly straightforward. So I always exclusively go Shadow Ball Volley, never go Twisting Nether. And you can see that the damage for Shadow Ball Volley, if you hit 20 shots, is going to be way more damage than you can get for Twisting Nether. And it's actually pretty realistic that you'll hit most of your shots with Shadow Ball Volley. So let me just show you
Choose a
what that looks
talent.
like. So I can target it in any direction I want, and then I can move my mouse here to kind of target as well. And note that the direction. So if I'm just shooting in a straight line here, and it's going to go in a straight line, right? If Cho moves his character, so if Cho moves, I'm trying to like point to my screen. Obviously you can't see that, but if Cho moves his character to face this way, the shots will go this way without me even moving my mouse. So both you and Cho have to kind of coordinate for where you want the shots to go, and that can be done through comms and just by playing together. But this is going to do a lot more damage, especially to any kind of front line. It's going to absolutely shred anyone you get onto. It does a ton of damage. It's also really good for sieging. Or if you're trying to burst down a target, maybe you want to burst down a Punisher. It's a pretty short cooldown, so you can definitely use it just to kind of DPS stuff. It also really works. It works really well if you're trying to go core or something. It's going to do almost 4,000 damage to a single target, so definitely very, very effective. Twisting Nether, I will show you right now.
Choose a talent. Choose a talent.
So you basically just
Choose a
activate it,
talent.
and then enemies within this range are slowed by 50%, right? 50%. And then you can activate it again to explode, and you can activate it early or right off the bat to do the damage up front. It does almost 1,000 damage. And remember that both these are increased by 25% when you use Ogre Rage, and you should definitely be using Ogre Rage before using your heroics to maximize the damage. These abilities will do Shadow Ball Volley will do over 4,000 damage to a single target, which is a absolutely huge amount. Actually, I think it does like nearly 5,000 damage to a single target. And twisting, if you hit all the shots, of course, and twisting Nether will do um, close to like 1,200 damage or something, which is quite effective as well to AoE targets. But again, I always go Shadow Ball Volley. I think it's just more effective. Level 13, we have Searing Shadows. Enemy heroes hit by Shadow Flame take an additional 2% of their maximum health as damage. Rising Dread. Each bounce of Dread Orb increases the radius by 25%, its damage by 25%. And Twilight Nova. After the first bounce of Dread Orb, two extra bombs bounce to the sides at once. So most of the time, I feel like people will probably go Twilight Nova because, oh, more bounces. You can
Choose a
actually see what it
talent.
looks like here. You have considerably more amounts of bounces, and it might look like you get significantly more damage, but you don't because most of the time enemies just don't walk into that. And instead, you're going to get a lot more value if you just go Searing Shadows. So enemy heroes hit by Shadow Flame take 2% of their max health, and when you have that combined with Double Trouble or even Ogre's Rampage, you're able to fire off your Shadow Flame extremely rapidly. And if you're hitting them one per second, right, which you can do with Double Trouble, I'm fairly certain of that. You're gonna be doing 2% damage, 2% max health per second. If they have tanks, that's a huge amount of damage. Plus its AOE effect. You're just gonna get way more value out of Searing Shadows than you would any of these other talents. And for Rising Dread, just not really effective whatsoever. Increases the radius and damage by 24%. So this does work with the passive effect here, with 200% more damage to non-heroic targets, but it's not really realistic. Okay, level 16, we have Shadow Snare. Shadow Flame slows enemy heroes by 10% for 4 seconds. The effect stacks up to 3 times, so a total of 30%. Let an Orb. Dread Orb stuns enemy heroes for 0.5 seconds when it hits. Deafening Blast. Rooting Blast silences enemy heroes for 1.25 seconds. So Deafening Blast is when you actually activate the Rooting Blast, then it'll silence. That can be an AoE effect as well, and it's a pretty short cooldown. So Shadow Snare here is what you want to go most of the time, I would say. So you can basically just, especially when you're spamming your Shadow Flame that often with Double Trouble or Ogre Rampage, you're gonna get a lot of slow value, and enemies can basically just not run away from you ever. So it might not seem that effective for a level 16 talent, but I assure you it is the best option here, at least most of the time. Let an Orb is not nearly as good as you might think it is. 0.5 seconds is not good, and again, heroes shouldn't be standing in your orbs. I mean, if they are, you're playing it at a really low level. It's not that hard to dodge these orbs. They go pretty slow, and they're really obvious to where they're gonna go. So the only hit you might get first is the one right in front of you. If the heroes are like running to all of these, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should take the talent then, because you're gonna get a lot of value. But most of the time, it's not gonna happen. Deafening Blast is quite good because you can kind of enemy heroes can't really dodge it, and 1.25 seconds silence, especially against some heroes, can be very, very effective. You need that CC or silence or burst. So if you combine this with your Hammer of Twilight at level 10 for Cho, that's gonna be up to 2-second loss of control of your character, which can be quite good. And it's a pretty short cooldown as well because it's every time you use your E. But most of the time I'd be going Shadow Snare
Choose a
here.
talent.
Okay, level 20 we have Shadow Fury. Shadow Bolt Volley hits all enemies in its path. Shifting Nether. Shifting Nether now teleports Cho to a targeted location before it begins channeling. The Will of Gall. Takedowns permanently increase the bonus of Ogre Rage by 2%. There's no cap to that. Psychotic Break. Upon dying, Gall gains Ogre Rage and can use abilities for 10 seconds. Okay, so um, as I said, I always go Shadow Ball Volley and not Twisted Nether, but just to show you what the upgrade for Shifting Nether does here, you basically just cast it and it's a short range blink, so you can just blink on top of heroes and you can activate it again. So you basically just gain a short range blink when you cast Twisted Nether. But again, I would never go um, either of these talents. Shadow Fury is the option I would go by far at level 20. It pierces, and although that might not seem too effective, if you get a Shadow Bolt Volley on their team, you basically just win the team fight. I cannot overstate how effective Shadow Bolt Volley is against enemy teams. You will absolutely shred heroes. And if you're passing through their entire team, it's just amazingly strong. The Will of Gall takedowns increase damage. It's just not, again, not realistic. Same thing as the Cho version, where you're increasing your armor. 2% per takedown is just, you're like already level 20. You're not gonna be able to stack this up nearly as much. Like even if you get like 10 kills, you're gonna get 20% more damage. Wow, amazing. Won't change anything for the game. Psychotic Break. Upon dying, Gall gains over Rage. So that basically just means this is popped, so you do 25% more damage, which you should be doing anyway. And you can use abilities for 10 seconds. So when you die, you can use abilities for 10 seconds, including your heroic. You can use your heroic when you're dead. This might seem like crap, and it mostly is, but if Cho gets the death timer reduction at level 20, so if I just go over here,
Choose a talent.
if Cho gets Hour
Choose a
of Twilight,
talent.
which decreases your death timer by 50%, so let's say that you have a full death timer, okay? So let's say that's like 65 seconds, and you're going to reduce that to 30 seconds. Um, so 65 seconds, you can reduce it to like 32 seconds or something, right? And then Gall also lasts for
Choose a
10
talent.
seconds for doing
Choose a
damage
talent.
after you die, right? So you're going to be you're only going to really have 20 seconds of effective death timer, maybe like 22 seconds of effective death timer on a 65-second normal death timer cooldown. That can be very, very, very effective depending on what map it is, how you're playing the game, and what kind of heroes the enemy has, and where you are at the point of the game. So I would definitely, I would never go Psychotic Break if Cho doesn't go the death timer reduction. But if you both go these talents, I would really, really like to see some compilations on YouTube or something for how this works. And just like it feels like you can get a never-ending game, especially if you have like Ariel with Resurrect or something. Seems like it'd be very, very interesting. But most of the time, I would go Shadow Fury. Okay, so this was an insanely long video, and if you sat through the entire thing, I applaud you, and I hope it was worth your time.
Choose
I
a
know that I
talent.
kind of stumbled along the
Choose a
way,
talent.
but I usually do these videos in one take, um, or I don't do them again because they're so long. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was kind of two heroes in one. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them, either in the YouTube comments or on Twitter. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later.